Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Thames Centre. The date is June 23rd, 2025. The time is, we're sneaking in just a shade early tonight, 4:59 p.m., and I'd like to call this meeting to order. Just item number 2, additions to the agenda. Yes, I believe there is one item that is going to be added to the agenda, and I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to present the motion if she has it ready.
Yes. Yes, I'd like to move that prior to the bylaw section of the agenda, that a closed session be added to include two personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, under section 239 subsection 2 of the Municipal Act as amended.
So we have the motion on the table. A seconder, please. Councillor Lockie, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. The next is a disclosure of pecuniary interest from the members of council. Councillor Lockie.
Yep, Your Worship, I have a pecuniary interest on 8.1. So that would be B925, B1025, and B1125 for 21778 Missouri Road, because I work for ADS and they're across the street.
Thanks, Councillor Lockie. In terms of announcements, I actually would like to take this moment to, even though this is in your package as council, this is a letter that was sent to me by AMCTO, the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers of Ontario. And it's congratulating the municipality for the implementation of the Open Book project, and in which the municipality of Thames Centre received the E.A. Danby Award. And our clerk, Jenna Nethercott, was there to on hand, our deputy mayor, Michelle Smybert, and Paul Shipway from the County of Middlesex. So hearty congratulations all. And then the second item is that just this past Saturday evening, the Legion, 513 Donnybrook Legion, the municipality of Thames Centre ordered these wonderful benches that are decorated with poppies, and they are going to be placed at the cenotaphs at both Dorchester and Thorndale. The exact site and the mounting and that sort of thing is yet to be determined, but I want to thank Steve McDonald in particular for a great job. If you get a chance to see those benches, my husband's already taken the first opportunity to sit on one, and they are a superb job. We got a lot of wonderful comments about that. So thanks for all your work on that one. All right. No presentations or delegations, so we will launch right into the public portion of the meeting on drainage. So item 7.1 is a meeting to consider the Wakeham Weir Drain Branches 2025, and I'm going to look to Mr. Mike Device to present.
Good afternoon or evening. Yes, this report was prepared in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act for a new municipal drain, or in this case, 3 new branches to the existing Wakeham Weir drain. The southerly drain is an existing private pipe that crosses the road. It's a very short distance, but the upstream lands, or the lands on the west side of Cherry Hill Road, do not have a legal or sufficient outlet. And they petitioned a request to have a pipe brought across the road that has enough depth and enough capacity to handle the area that's tributary on the west side. And there's also a new branch being constructed for the same property, but further north on the north side of the Enbridge pipelines. To be able to cross the pipelines, this can be very tedious and difficult and costly. So in this case, with the municipal drain a short distance across the road, it was best served to bring a new branch across the road at that area. And also there are low-lying lands up in that particular portion of the property. And then there was a subsequent petition by another property to the north, the Burrick and Paul property, who required a legal and sufficient outlet for their property. There happened to already be a pipe at that location. Again, it was private, and the landowners felt that the existing pipe was sufficient and not required to be replaced. But we would replace a piece of the private pipe from the road up to that property a short distance, and then incorporate the existing pipe that goes under the road as part of the municipal drain instead of spending the money to replace it. There is a small repair in one location on the pipe. We did video camera the pipe and found one spot that needs to be repaired. So in this case, it's 3 short branches overall. There will be catch basins to help gain access for surface water during larger rain events, and then a subsurface pipe for any tiles that landowners may want to connect. And at that point, I'll stop and open up for questions.
Are there any affected landowners in the room or online who wish to ask questions?
There's no one
Appears-
online, your worship.
Okay, it appears there are none. Anyone liking to add or remove their name to the petition? Okay. Okay, then any questions from the members of council on this drainage? Okay. Seeing none then, do I have a mover for the recommendation as it appears on the agenda to receive this report, adopt the drainage report for the Wakeham Weir Drain Branches 2025, and to schedule the Court of Revision for Monday, July 28th? Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That carries. The next item then, and I guess Mr. Devosh, you're up for this one as well. A meeting to consider the Dorchester Road drain, which is item 7.2 on your agenda. If you want to go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yes, thank you. This report was also prepared in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act for a new municipal drain. There were several properties that petitioned, as well as the county for Dorchester Road itself. The area is in the vicinity of Byron Ave along Dorchester Road, and then some lands on both the east side and the west side. There are some commercial lands and future residential lands, both that require a legal and sufficient outlet. In dealing with the municipality and also the county in this case, who own the road, it was decided to use the Drainage Act to as the best option to be able to secure that legal outlet. The county has also requested that the new drain accommodate future urbanization, so that is curb and gutter and sidewalk. So this design includes the ability for new drainage or the changing of the drainage to accommodate curb and gutter and sidewalk. The lay of the land is from Byron, basically south, with an outlet in order to secure an outlet that would not affect any of the wellhead protection areas, because the Dorchester's wellhead heads are in the area. We followed the route of an existing storm sewer from Dorchester Road westerly, I'd say to the north of the existing big swamp drain, to get to a point where we were past that wellhead protection area and outside of it. So we're outletting very close to an existing storm sewer that outlets there. And as the drain passes through private lands, we'd be running parallel to the existing drain that's there to create the least amount of disturbance or effect on that area. That area is slated for future development and is actually part of an open space property. So it won't be built on in the future to create an obstruction to future development. So there is some land to the north of that on the west side that would use this drain as an outlet, and then lands on the east side. We are recommending that catch basins be put along the route of the drain to allow surface water access in at certain points, keeping in mind that there would be curb and gutter in the future, as well as adding some stormwater management measures in the form of exfiltration trenches, being crushed stone trenches, as well as bin structures to hold water and let it seep into the ground. The area is quite sandy and accommodates infiltration, and we had to place the location of those outside the protection area for the wellheads. So we're not doing anything in terms of exfiltration once we get to that protected area, but outside the protected area, we are using some stormwater management through exfiltration. And at that point, I'll stop and open up to questions.
Thank you, Mike. So as before, are there any questions from affected landowners regarding the design and details of the drain? Yes, sir. Would you like to state your name and your address, please, for the record?
Yeah, my name's Justin Diot. I'm representing Sifton Properties.
Okay,
So we are the, apologies that the address escapes me, but we're adjacent to the Shoppers Plaza with the development. Two comments. The first is that we're supportive of this plan. We've reviewed it with our engineering team, and generally agree with what's been proposed. The second is more of a general comment to the municipality and staff, in that between our subdivision that's, you know, imminently going to get underway in terms of construction, the county reconstruction project that's planned for some point in the future, and these works, we would just ask that whatever, to the best of your ability, whatever coordination can happen between all those works, to help limit the amount of service interruption on Dorchester Road would be preferable. But other than that, we're quite supportive of this plan.
is that possible between Mike and Tanner?
Yes, we can keep them updated and discuss timing. Our project will have to go out to tender, so we're a bit early to
Sure.
know some of that particulars. Some of the works that may be being described is that the county does have future road works to be done. That is a project that they would complete through their own tendering and process. So that I don't have any say or any input that I could provide, but I can let them know. I don't know the exact timing. I think in this case, our works in terms of the new piping will be close to where the future sidewalk would be. And because there's a fair amount of fill going in, we were suggesting that the sidewalk be delayed for one season to allow some settlement to occur before the sidewalk portion goes in. But it's not going to be affecting by the roads. Our drain will cross Dorchester Road in two locations to service the properties on the other side. And then again, if it can be coordinated for things to happen at the same time, then by all means, we could attempt that.
Thanks for that explanation. And Sarah, you have your hands up. Is there?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Jeremy Lightheart is online and he has his hand up.
Okay, certainly. Tell him he can go ahead just anytime he's ready.
Can everyone hear me fine?
Yes, we can. I think we can hear you a bit. From my point of view, you're a wee bit mumbled. Can you try again?
I'll try again. Yeah, it's Jeremy Lightheart here, and I'm with WMI and Associates. We're the civil consulting engineers working on behalf of the Otis Group or the Otis Properties. That's the Shoppers property. I did put my hand up maybe a little prematurely because like you did answer a few of my questions there just recently. One I do have is I think we're the only ones that are already developed and our connection is waiting to be connected to, whereas the others I think will come at a later date, right? So I guess I'm just wondering, it looks as if the pipe will terminate about 5 meters away from property line. And my other question was going to be regarding the urbanization of Dorchester Road, but I understand you don't really know what the timing of that will be. So it looks to me like it's gonna almost daylight, like there's not going to be a lot of cover there. So one, I'm just wondering how that's being accounted for, and two, who is going to be responsible for actually connecting the pipe? Because we were asked to bring ours up with the head wall at the future widening. And I think right now between you and I, we're about 5 meters away.
Mr. DeVos, are you able to answer those questions? Okay, just give us one moment here, please, and we'll be back to you.
No problem.
what I would suggest is that if all of the work is completed on their end, I know that there was an expansion in a second phase that was being completed. But if all their work is done, then as part of this project, we would want to go further and connect it. But when we were working on this earlier, I wasn't sure whether some of that second phase, if it's complete or not, but if it is complete, we would go all the way and make the connections. There's an entrance a little bit further to the north, so you could do some grading in there to accommodate that and fill it up at this time.
Were you able to hear that response?
Yes, I was, and that sounds great. It's probably something that we could talk at a different time, Mike, but it is a 375 shown. We have a 300. So there would just be a little bit of coordination, I would imagine, between the two of us to ensure that we can make this connection without any issues. And I just more or less wanted to bring up that point of like that right now, there's not going to be a lot of cover. I know in the final solution, when we fill in and things get urbanized, everything will be fine. I just want to make sure that we can account for it in the interim and the final, that's all. The last
Thank
question,
you.
I guess, regarding that would be the catch basin. But I think, again, you'll probably be able to, when you extend it, deal with that catch basin that's there. I was just wondering, was that to pick up local drainage in the ditch in the interim solution while the pipe still would extend and connect to us?
Yeah, it has a dual purpose. One would be for that, for the temporary purpose, but also in the future, if some of that pond overflows in a rain event that's larger, and that there happens to be a little bit of excess capacity due to the timing of the flows. I know that the stormwater management facilities fill up and then release for land in a large rain event. And if the major flows into the piping has come and gone, and there's a little bit of excess capacity left due to that timing, it could possibly accept some of that surface water that's overflowing from your site into the drain. If it's full, it wouldn't be able to handle any excess. But if it wasn't full at the time that the flows occur, then some could drop into the drain.
Okay, so
Okay.
once again, did you hear the response then?
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. Yes, I did hear, and that all makes sense. Last question, I guess, would be, when it does get urbanized, we've provided enough grade that the spill from, we've got a curb cut, so that major spill you were referencing, if that happened to occur, would sheet across the boulevard onto the right of way and then down the road as is typical. I'm just wondering what you'd be doing with the catch basin at that point, or would that be something that the county would be dealing with, basically?
If I can recall correctly, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think that the catch basin's elevation is set so that if water overflows the pond, it would flow over the sidewalk into the boulevard and into the basin. The basin would be set probably a little bit below the back of curb, if I'm correct. I'm not 100% sure. It'd be close, but not depressed much, but there to be able to capture some of the water without flowing out onto the road.
Okay, there again, you heard the response. Were you able to hear that?
Yes, I was. I feel like right now the top of the catch basin, it'll be like down in the ditch, and the ditch is relatively deep in that area. So I feel like when it does get urbanized, that would have to be removed, or a catch basin that could be extended further up to grade would be required. But again, I know that's not really the objective here with this particular design. You're dealing in the interim solution.
Okay, Mike, then, okay, alrighty. Any other questions? Are you still there?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for myself, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks very much. So at this point then, is there anyone in the room who is an affected landowner who wanted to ask any questions about that? No one? And Sarah, no one online?
There's no one online, your worship.
Okay, and then once again, on this petition, anyone wanting to add or remove their names to the petition? Okay, I'm seeing none. So any questions from the members of council? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, you've pretty much answered my initial question, which was what would be the proposed timeline for this project? Assuming that it passes tonight, it would go to quarter revision, et cetera, et cetera. Really, I was asking that because there is a number of, I would say, pertaining to the Shoppers Plaza, they do have the existing infrastructure that they just completed with the new parking lot. And then there's been lots of requests for the urbanization, sidewalk, et cetera, coming from Boardwalk and then the imminent Sifton properties as well. So I was just wondering if you could touch on impact of that, which you kind of have already. So I guess at this point, we're just waiting.
Yes, it depends on the drain and depends on the municipality. Sometimes these projects could get tendered between tonight and the quarter revision. Sometimes they feel more comfortable waiting and not having the risk of an appeal. But the idea would be to tender it as soon as possible, get the prices back, and then construct it this year.
Thank you for
Now,
that.
like I said, the sidewalk portion, the earth would be built up and prepared for it, but not put down until the following season, because some places there's substantial amount of material going in.
Thank you. I appreciate that transparency.
No other questions from the members of council then? Okay, if that's the case, then do I have a mover for the recommendation as it appears on the agenda to receive this report, adopt the drainage report for the Dorchester Road drain, and to schedule the Court of Revision for Monday, July 28th? A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Okay, moving into the public meeting regarding planning. We a mover and a seconder that council adjourn its regular meeting at 5:21 p.m. and move into public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act to consider applications listed on the June 23rd, 2025 regular council agenda. Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Any opposed? Oh, sorry, you blipped out on that one. Okay, thank you. That carries. Okay, the first item on the agenda is 8.1, consent application B9-25, B10-25, and B11-25, McCutcheon Consulting, Inc., care of Ryan Pope, owner. Property address is 21778 Missouri Road. Oh, did he? And recognizing that Councillor Lockie has a conflict on this one. All right. Good afternoon, Ms. Betch. If anytime you're ready, you could go ahead.
Thank you very much. So the first item before council this evening, again, is consent B9, B10, and B11 of this year. This is submitted by McCutcheon Consulting, and it pertains to a property located at 21778 Missouri Road. Council shall or should be fairly familiar with this property. We have had several applications previously. This is just sort of the next step in terms of allowing for development of this site. So the applications are technical in nature. They are intended to facilitate the long-term land lease and the establishment of reciprocal easements to support the future commercial use. The proposed development, which is currently the subject of an active site plan application, includes the gas bar, convenience store, and car wash. This lease would be between McCutcheon Consulting and McEwen Petroleum and is expected to exceed 21 years in duration. And because leases of this nature are considered a form of property division under the Planning Act, formal consent is required from council. The property itself is approximately 1.84 hectares in size and is currently designated general commercial and zoned site-specific general commercial, which permits the proposed uses. The lands to be leased would be the northern part, 0.6 hectares in size, And the remainder of the property, which would be retained, contains the existing McCutcheon Farm drainage business. In addition to the land lease, the applicants are requesting to establish reciprocal access easements, one on either property. This would allow for traffic to flow seamlessly through each of the properties. In terms of the location of the site being on county roads, it makes a lot of sense to allow for shared accesses, especially in proximity to a busy intersection. So by establishing these access easements, traffic could flow through both sites and still access King Street and Missouri Road. From a policy perspective, the applications are consistent with the PPS and conform to both official plans. All three planning documents permit consents for legal or technical purposes, and this includes land leases and easements as well. The official plan specifically permits easements to establish legal access, and I am satisfied that the proposal meets the intent of this policy. As part of the technical review, the following comments were received. From the county engineer, we received the standard road widening dedication requirement. This was also included in the previous consent application. So I did include it as one of the conditions. However, it is being satisfied in a number of different ways. So it will get done, whichever application gets finalized first. From the drainage superintendent, no comment, and the chief building official had no comments as well. And I did not receive any comments from the public on this report. So each of the applications is subject to standard technical conditions, submission of deeds and transfers, payment of applicable taxes and fees, road widening dedications, and a deposited reference plan. I will say that the applicant has already had the survey completed. He's included the easements as part of that. So this will be a very easy check mark. So my recommendation this evening is approval subject to this is for B9 specifically, subject to the 7 conditions. B9 is specific to the land lease requirement. In terms of the land lease, there is a condition that his solicitor establishes the legal easement and registers it on title of both properties so that it is easily accessible by all parties. And then consent B10 and B11 are both subject to 6 conditions as well, and those are to establish the legal access easements. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Is there any information, sorry, any additional information from applicants or agents who are in the room?
Yes, Your Worship. We have the applicant Ryan Pope online. I'll bring him over.
Certainly, thank you.
Hi there. Sorry, I just got off mute.
Hello, Mr. Pope. Whenever you're ready, go ahead, please.
Oh, everything that Aaron stated is absolutely perfect as far as the conditions are concerned. I think, yeah, we're just waiting on the legal title right now for the easement. I think Aaron and you and I talked about that last week. So, yeah, everything's going along tickety-boo.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you. Okay. So then we'll move on to find out, is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment or question?
There's no one online, Your Worship.
Okay, and no one in the chambers? Okay. Any questions from the members of council on this particular application? No, seems none. All right. Well, if there's no further discussion on this, the public meeting is now closed. The decision portion, approval for all 3 consent applications are included in one recommended motion as appended to the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve consent applications B925, B1025, and B1125, subject to each of their own set of conditions as appended to the agenda? Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Heeman. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Huge agenda tonight. All right, now at this point, we'll move on to item number 8.2 on your agenda, consent application B8-25 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z14-25, Daniel and Heather Monteith, applicant, Stuart Finlater, Finlater and Associates, Inc. as the agent, and the property address is 21854 Fairview Road, and we will look to our planner, Ms. Besh, to present.
Thank you very much. I thought you were going to be rid of me there for a moment, but next. So this application again is for B8 2025. The purpose of this application is to sever a surplus farm dwelling, which is part of a broader farm consolidation. The applicants intend to retain the existing house and accessory buildings while conveying the remainder of the farmland to Elliott Grain Limited or another qualifying farming operation. In support of this, they have also brought forward a zoning bylaw amendment request to rezone the retained farmland to our site-specific agricultural A-45 zone. This would prohibit any new residential developments, which is consistent with provincial and local policy. The subject lands are approximately 21 hectares in size. They're situated on the east side of Fairview Road, just south of Thorndale. The property includes a single detached dwelling, detached garage, and silo, and is serviced by private well and septic. And then the remainder of the property is in crop production. There is no significant woodlands. There's no regulated area. It's quite a clean property from that perspective. This application, of course, represents what we consider to be sort of a reverse surplus farm dwelling severance, whereby the purchaser is the one who's qualifying for the severance. The application has been reviewed against the PPS, county, and local official plans. All relevant criteria appear to be satisfied. The dwelling is habitable. It was built in 2011, which satisfies our timeline requirements. The proposed buyer is based in Thames Center and owns and operates at least 10 farms. I'm very satisfied that this qualifies as a legitimate farm consolidation. The lands to be retained are capable of meeting the minimum lot provisions in the zoning bylaw, and the zoning amendment to prohibit new residential uses on the farmland is appropriate, which will ensure the long-term protection of our agricultural land base. As part of the circulation process, the following comments were received. Director of Public Works is requiring that a separate entrance already exists to the A-zoned portion of the property. An entrance permit will be required if a second field entrance is required. A drainage assessment is required as well from the drainage superintendent, and the chief building official provided that the proponent will provide sufficient documentation from an OLS to demonstrate compliance of all buildings on the parcel subject to our zoning bylaw, as well as building code requirements. No comments were received from the public on this application. So in summary, I'm recommending the consent application B825 be approved and the zoning bylaw amendment Z14 also be approved. Along with the consent application, I did submit a list of recommended conditions. There are 11 in total and they are attached to my report. They were all quite standard for this type of severance, and I'm available for any questions if there's any. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. So any additional information that the applicant or the agent would like to provide? Mr. Finlater? Oh, all right, thank you. Sarah, anyone online who wishes to speak to this?
There's no one online, your worship.
Okay, and is there anyone in the chambers who would like to speak to it as well? Okay, seeing none, then any questions from the members of council on this application? No? Okay. So if there's no further discussion, the public meeting is now closed. And we have two decisions as council. The first decision, a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion to approve consent application B825, subject to the 11 conditions as appended to the agenda. A mover, moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smyberg. All in favor? That carries. And the second agenda is a mover, I'm sorry, the second decision is a mover and the seconder to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z 14-25 as appended to the agenda and that the implementing bylaw be considered. A mover and a seconder, Councillor Lockie and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? Thank you. That carries. And item 8.3 on your agenda, consent application B7-25 and zoning bylaw amendment application Z13-25. John and Bonnie Ross as applicant, Stuart Finlater and Associates, Inc. as the agent, and the property address is 22037 Fairview Road. Ms. Cortez, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. So the purpose and effect of the consent application is to sever a parcel of land to facilitate the disposal of a residence surplus to a farming operation as a result of a pending farm consolidation. And the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the balance of the farm to prohibit any new residential use. So the subject property is a 131-acre farm situated on the west side of Fairview Road and south of Oliver Drive, and the lands abut the CN Railway and the settlement area of Thorndale. The farm contains a single detached dwelling, which is serviced by a private well and septic system, and the septic system is generally located south of the dwelling as well as the well. And the lands also contain several structures and buildings, including a workshop, which is the most northerly structure on the property. And the workshop is serviced by a separate septic system, and that's located north of that workshop. The property also contains a detached garage, a storage building, and two smaller sheds or structures. So due to the presence of the railway and the location of the woodlot, most of the farmland is accessed via a driveway on the neighboring lands at 21975 Fairview Road, which contains a private railway crossing. And 21975 Fairview Road is also owned by the applicants, and a portion of the lands on the north side of the property has access off Fairview Road. So staff would like to note that a farmer has entered into an agreement of purchase and sale with the applicants to purchase the lands to be severed, being the farm parcel, whereas the applicants would retain ownership of the lands to be retained, containing the residential use and the existing buildings. So the retained lands would have a frontage of approximately 111 meters along Fairview Road and an area of approximately 3.2 acres. So as noted, the applicants are also proposing to rezone the severed lands, being the remnant farm parcel, to A-45 to prohibit any new residential uses. And the portions of the property that are zoned environmental protection would remain unchanged. So the provincial planning statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, and the Thames Center official plan generally permit lot creation in agricultural areas or a dwelling surplus to a farming operation as a result of farm consolidation, subject to criteria. So the dwelling is habitable and was constructed in 1968. The purchaser's home farm is located within the municipality, and the purchaser owns and operates a number of farms totaling approximately 704 acres. And given that the majority of the farmland is accessed using a neighboring driveway at 21975 Fairview Road, staff believe it would be appropriate to require the establishment of a right-of-way easement over 21975 Fairview Road in favor of the remnant farm parcel to ensure legal access to the farmland. So while staff is satisfied that most of the criteria has been satisfied or is capable of being addressed through conditions of consent, staff is of the opinion that the requested size of 3.2 acres for the lands to be retained is larger than necessary to accommodate the septic systems and dwelling. And further to this, given the location of the storage building, so the most westerly structure, retaining the storage building with the lands to be retained, being the lot with the residential use, would result in a larger and irregular shaped lot. And the policy framework states that the proposed lot should be kept to a minimum size to accommodate the dwelling and servicing. And considering this, staff believe retaining the agricultural storage building, again being the most westerly structure, with the remnant farm parcel, as well as reducing the size of the lands to be retained to be approximately 2 acres, would be appropriate to ensure that the retained lands are the minimum size required and are keeping with provincial, county, and local policies. And this would also maintain the agricultural building with the farmland, where it can be utilized for implement storage or similar. So the lands to be retained being reduced to approximately 2 acres would contain the single detached dwelling, detached garage, workshop, and the most southerly shed, and would comply with the undersized lot provisions of the agricultural zone. So based on the foregoing, provided that the lot size is reduced as recommended by staff, the subject applications are consistent with the provincial planning statement and in conformity with the County of Middlesex and Thames Center official plans. So during the circulation of the public meeting notice, comments were received from the county engineer, the director of public works, the drainage superintendent, as well as the Thames Valley District School Board, and those comments are included within the report. After the writing of the report, comments were received from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority, who advised no objections, and no public comments have been received to date. So staff recommend that application for consent B7-25 be approved subject to the 12 conditions noted in the report, including the condition to reduce the lot size to 2 acres for the reasons outlined in the report. As well as staff recommend that application for zoning bylaw amendment Z13-25 be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez. Any additional information from the applicant or agent? Go ahead, Mr. Finlater.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, again. So generally, while we agree with the analysis and the recommendation of Ms. Cortez on this application, we do have concern with condition 3, again, which states the lot area should be limited to 0.81 hectares or 2 acres. And it's, again, the issue from my point of view is that the provincial policy statement, sorry, provincial planning statement as it's referred to now, doesn't stipulate a specific size. It says the new lot shall be limited in minimum size needed to accommodate the use, the sewage, and the water services. The lands to the north of this dwelling have been used since 1968 as yard area for the dwelling. They're used as part of the residential use. Both the County of Middlesex and Thames Center official plans contain the same language as the PPS, so there's not any specific size requirement. And what we've applied for, in my professional opinion, is consistent with the PPS and conforms with both those official plans. And I say that because at the north end of where the residential use stops, there is a deep valley with a creek that runs through it that in a mature tree line, which create a natural separation. I know it's not a natural severance, but a natural separation between the farmland and the residential use, the yard area of that dwelling. There's no way any farming equipment could get across that creek without building a massive bridge, which I'm not sure the Upper Thames would support in any event. So to suggest that this application is not consistent with the PPS unless it's reduced by an acre or so, in my opinion, doesn't make a lot of sense. What makes sense is if you look at on the ground what's there, that land has never been farmed. It will never be farmed, and it's most appropriately kept with the dwelling. None of the buildings on this property are agricultural in nature. The building the furthest to the west is a little Quonset hut that stores basically the Thorndale Lions truck they take out when they sell hamburgers and that. I mean, it wouldn't, I don't know what piece of farm equipment it could contain. It's not very big at all, but it's important to the Rosses because that's Lion Ross helps that community store their vehicles in that structure. So again, none of these structures are agriculture related. And, you know, the intent of the PPS policy is, in my opinion, is to protect agricultural land. I worked here for 30 years and I don't think there was one application where I would make a recommendation that would adversely affect agricultural land. And I haven't done it, in my opinion, since I started my own business. I know the value of agriculture. I know how important it is to the County Middlesex and Thames Center. And I would advise clients if they came to me with an application that was going to contravene or conflict with the official plan of the PPS, that I couldn't support it, and there's no policies to support it. I think in this case, again, each application should be looked at on its own merits. And I don't think that reducing the size of this lot makes one bit of difference from an agricultural perspective or not. So, the policy is intended to allow farmers to acquire additional land without becoming a landlord. And that's what this application does. There's absolutely no loss of agricultural land. And again, I would just ask the committee to approve our application as applied for. And I think Ms. Cortez did have a second sort of recommendation in her report, that if you agreed with my position, that recommendation is there for you for your consideration. So thank council committee for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Finlater. So once again, is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none. Sarah, do we have anyone online?
There's no one online, your worship.
Oh, okay, thank you. And, oh, I'm so. Okie dokie, go ahead.
And again, this happened after this report was written, but the Elliots now own the 21975, wherever that easement comes, or proposed easement was to come through. So I don't think that condition 9 is required anymore, because they own that land as well. So I don't think that there's a need for that.
So at this point then, any, oh, I'm sorry, Alana, please go ahead.
Thank you, your worship, through you. Just 2 points. So generally, we do want to see agricultural lots as small as possible. And should that area that was proposed to be kept with the residential use, should that not be used for cultivated land, wood lots are considered agricultural uses, maple syrup production, agroforestry. So I just wanted to put that out there. I also wanted to note, although the Elliots do own 21975 Fairview Road, it is considered a separately conveyable parcel, meaning that it can be separately sold. So to ensure that there is always legal access to that farmland, I do believe that including the condition for a legal access easement would be beneficial.
So this refers to item number 9 in the recommendations. Is that so? That consent for easement
That's correct.
purposes be obtained? Okay. All right then. Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to find out if there is anyone from council who has questions on this application or needs clarification. Okay. Councillor Heeman, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I guess just a general comment, and I think that if you look at the previous application, I think that's a perfect example of how we want to preserve farmland, and where, a smaller lot size does do that, where I think we have a natural heritage feature, a creek, we have an existing use with an outbuilding that's not agricultural. I think this is probably an example of where we can exercise some common sense in terms of exceptions to those policies.
Thank you, Councillor Heeman. Anyone else wishing to comment on this application? Councillor Lockie, go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship, I totally recognize that we don't want to give up more farmland than necessary, but with this one, I think having the natural separation of the property is, something that makes things a lot easier for many parties. So I would recommend that, we stick with the original, what the applicant requested, with the recommendations provided by staff.
So to be clear then, Councillor Lockie, you would like to go to option number 2, and you're making that motion?
That is correct, your worship.
Okay. Anyone wishing to second that motion? Councillor Heeman, all in favor? That carries then. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Finlater and others. So the next item on the agenda is 8.4, temporary use zoning bylaw amendment application 10-2, Z10-25, Fred Jameson and Susan Jameson as applicants, Stuart Finlater, agent, and the property address is 5242 Marion Street. And again, Ms. Cortez, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. So the purpose and effect of this application is to permit 2 single detached dwellings on the subject lands for a temporary period not to exceed 3 years while a new dwelling is constructed. So the subject property is a 2.7 acre lot situated on the north side of Marion Street between Clara Street and Elgin Road. And the lands contain an existing single detached dwelling with a floor area of 160 square meters and is serviced by a private well and septic system. And the lands also contain a detached garage with a floor area of 146 square meters. So the applicants are proposing to retain the existing single detached dwelling while a new single detached dwelling is constructed. And the new dwelling is proposed to have a floor area of 201 square meters, as well as an attached 3-car garage to be located north of the existing dwelling within the agricultural A zone of the property. And upon 3 years, the existing dwelling at 5242 Marion Street is to be removed. Typically, a temporary use rezoning would require the existing dwelling to be removed from the land upon the expiration of a 3-year period or the occupancy of the new single detached dwelling, whichever occurs first. The applicants have, however, requested that the existing single detached dwelling be permitted for up to 3 years, regardless of the occupancy of the new dwelling, with the stated intent of seeing if additional residential unit policies change in the county official plan and Thames Center official plan in the future. So as council will recall, this property is also subject to zoning bylaw amendment application Z20-24, which requested to permit an additional residential unit on the lands. And the application was deferred by municipal council on March 24th, 2025. So the Planning Act allows for the council of a local municipality to pass a bylaw to authorize the temporary use of land for a period of time not to exceed 3 years from the day of the passing of the bylaw. And the Thames Center official plan allows temporary uses for up to 3 years, including the construction of a second dwelling, while retaining the existing dwelling under certain circumstances. And the official plan provides criteria for the evaluation of temporary uses, including the proposed use is temporary, the proposed use will not create detrimental effects on the surrounding area, compatibility with adjacent and surrounding area, the proposed use can be adequately serviced and will not create any undue traffic or parking impacts, and the proposed use shall conform to the general intent of the plan. So the foregoing criteria have been satisfied or capable of being satisfied by having the owner enter into an agreement with the municipality, and this would require removal of the existing dwelling upon the expiry of the temporary use bylaw within 3 years. So a draft agreement is provided for council's consideration, and this includes for the payment of a $5,000 security deposit due at the time of the issuance of the building permit. So staff is of the opinion that the subject application would ensure consistency with the provincial planning statement and conformity with the Thames Center and county official plans. So in the circulation of the public meeting notice, comments were received from the county engineer, the director of public works, the drainage superintendent, and the chief building official, and these comments are included within the report. And no public comments have been received to date. So staff recommend that the zoning bylaw be approved to permit 2 single unit dwellings on the property municipally known as 5242 Marion Street for a temporary period, and that the temporary use agreement be considered, and that the implementing zoning bylaw be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez. Again, any additional information, Mr. Finlater? Okay. All right. And I don't believe there's anyone in the council chambers. Anyone online?
No one online, Your Worship.
No. Okay then. Any questions from the members of council on this? Deputy Mayor Smyber.
Great, thank you. I'm not sure if this is for the plan or for the applicant or. the applicant's representative, but so we still have that application, zoning amendment. It is, I guess, what's the status of that? Is it the intent that you're going ahead with the second dwelling? And is it the hope that possibly there might be some more clarity around ERUs and the sizes, or is the applicant going to be withdrawing the application for the rezoning amendment? Just wanted to get some clarity on that.
Mr. Finlay, do you look like you have something to say? Would you like to come to the mic, please?
Yeah, we did have discussions with staff. Originally, Mr. Jameson was looking for an additional residential unit. That became kind of an issue because there's policies not really established, and other than everybody wants it smaller than the existing one, and what he was proposing to build at the back was slightly bigger than the house at the front. So basically what we've decided to do is apply for the temporary use for now, in the hopes that between now and when the house is built and the occupancy permit's issued, there's clarity on the ARU. And if there's reverse ARUs, that the one in the front can be a bit smaller than the one in the back, that would allow him to keep that dwelling. So, but he's fully aware and fully understands that if the policy comes out and it still says whatever he's got there isn't going to work, that he's going to have to demolish and remove that house in the front. But we didn't want to withdraw it right now until, like, we understand you're fairly close. I see there's a report on the agenda tonight. Well, no, close in municipal terms, but yeah, so that's why we've still got it on the table, but if it doesn't work, it'll be wrong.
Is there anyone else on council who would like to ask questions or comment? Okay, alrighty. Councillor Heeman.
And I just want to congratulate everybody for some creative thinking in this situation. And I would like to thank the applicant for being patient during this process. And I think it's always hard to be the first, but I think that we're establishing a new pathway, not just in Thames Center, but I think a good regional precedent. And I look forward to seeing how this all comes together.
Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions from council, then I move to close the public meeting, and a decision, a mover to approve zoning bylaw amendment Z10-25 and the temporary use agreement as appended to the agenda, and that the implementing bylaws be considered. Councillor Heeman and Deputy Mayor Smyber, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Your worship, just before we get too much farther, we did miss moving an amended second motion for the previous item for Z1325. We did not deal with the consideration of the zoning. So the motion would be to approve the zoning and that the implementing bylaw as amended in the be considered in the bylaw portion of the agenda.
So it's moved by Councillor Heeman and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? And my apologies to council for missing that. All right, item 8.5 on the agenda is a mover and a seconder to close the public meetings. The planning meeting, public meetings adjourn at 5:58 p.m. in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under the Planning Act to consider minor variance application A5-25 as listed on the June 23rd, 2025 regular council agenda. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Then Committee of Adjustment 9.1 minor variance application A525 JC Green Inc. care of Robert O'Neill applicant, Richard Pellerin as the agent. Property address is 17 406 Evelyn Drive. And again, Ms. Besh to present.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So the one and only application before the committee this evening is again for A05 2025 17406 Evelyn Drive. The purpose of this application is to request relief from front yard setback requirement in the site-specific agricultural commercial AGC-5 zone. Specifically, the applicant is seeking a reduced front yard setback of 9.1 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 10. The subject property is approximately 4.5 hectares in size. It's located on the north side of Evelyn Drive, just east of Heritage Road. It contains a former elementary school building, which has been converted into a commercial greenhouse operation. The site is privately serviced and it includes security fencing and 2 controlled access points off of Evelyn. The rear portion of the lot was expanded in 2022 through a consent application, which added approximately 1.2 hectares to the rear of the parcel, and that to support future growth of the business. So a portion of this greenhouse structure was recently destroyed by fire and is now in the process of being rebuilt. It's sort of not the piece that is in question today. As part of a broader site plan amendment that is currently underway, the applicant is proposing to construct an office addition on the front of the building, along with an outdoor propagation building. So during the review of the site plan application, it was identified that they had a setback reduction of 9.1 meters. When asked, this is, 9.1 instead of 10 is not a significant difference. Would you like to sort of amend the plan so that you don't need the minor variance? But they did want to proceed with the variance for the 9.1 meters, which is totally fine. The property is designated agricultural. Again, it's zoned agricultural commercial. This zoning permits greenhouse operations with certain additional provisions, such as separation distances for greenhouses that are using artificial lighting, but retains the standard lot provisions of the parent AGC zone. So I have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of minor variance that are required under the Planning Act. I am satisfied that it does meet the 4 tests. 9.1 compared to 10 meters is quite, it may be not even noticeable with the naked eye from this, the public right of way. It's not something that someone's going to say, "Ooh, that's just like slightly too close." That's not a professional opinion. That's just an errant opinion. Yeah. The site includes a mature cedar hedge and dry pond that is proposed along with the site plan, and that would be along the property line. So it will act as a buffer between the building and the right of way. The appropriate use of the land variance, this is an additional administrative space for an expanding business, I think, which is a positive thing. It is situated in a location that works functionally with the existing building and site layout, and most importantly, it doesn't affect site servicing, stormwater management, any of the things that are already working on site. So in my opinion, it does meet the 4 tests. We circulated the application as per the requirements of the Planning Act and did not receive any comments. So based on the information provided, I am recommending approval of the minor variance, subject to no conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Is there anyone else, the applicant or the agent on this online?
Yes, Your Worship, Robert O'Neill, the applicant's online. I'll bring him over.
Certainly. Hi, Mr. O'Neill, are you there?
Yep. Hi there. Can you hear me? The video.
Yes, we can. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yep. So I'm just sitting here with my professional planner, Gary Blazik. We really have no comments other than we appreciate and are in agreement with the recommendations from Thames Center.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from, no one's in person here and no one online, Sarah, to ask questions?
There's no one online, Your Worship.
Okey-dokey. Then what we'll do then is move over to questions from the committee members. Any questions? Seeing none, Okay. There being no further discussion, the public hearing is now closed. Do I have a mover to approve minor variance A525 as appended to the agenda? Councillor Crockett and Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That carries. So at this time, a mover and a seconder that the Committee of Adjustment adjourn at 6:04 p.m. and council reconvene its regular meeting. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Crockett, all in favor? That carries. Okay, item number 10 is approval of the previous minutes. That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on June 9th be approved as circulated. Councillor Lockie and Councillor Heeman, all in favor? That carries, thanks. All right. Item number 11, the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. Does anyone have any item on that they want pulled? No? Okay, so a mover and a seconder that consent agenda items 11.1 through 11.5 be received for information. Deputy Mayor Smybert and Councillor Lockie, all in favor? Carried. Okay, moving on to reports of departments. Item number 12.1, 2024 unaudited financial statement, and we'll look to the Director of Financial Services and Treasurer to present.
How we, thank you, Steve, how we would produce future function and structures for the 2026 budget, our Q4 operational results, a briefing about our capital projects, and then how that relates and impacts our reserves. Next slide. So legislative compliance. You'll see out of the municipal act, there is a requirement for the treasurer to provide council with such information with respect to the financial affairs. And it's my plan to present to you this year-end report, to come back in July to give you a Q1 and Q2 report for 2025, then come back in October to give you your Q3 report, and then that cycle would repeat year after year. And that is how we've reported to KPMG, who were on site last week, of how we do our financial reporting. Next slide. And you'll see this is how we're organized today, as how you prepare your budgets and your financial reporting. It's in these categories. What you see in burgundy is what is levy supported. What you see in blue is your rate supported programs, and in green is your trust fund for cemetery services. This is how we report back to the province. This is how the structure they would like it and its format. And what you'll see on the next slide, thank you, Sarah, is how we would like to propose our 2026 budget and reporting, although we'll still follow the ministry format in terms of financial reporting. we're looking at structuring it a little bit differently. So more of a departmental reporting back to you. And Sarah, if you go to slide 8, and I'll give you an example. Yeah, next one, right there. So if you look at fire services, which is the responsibility of the fire chief, you can see that his administration is incorporated into the Dorchester Fire Station, and then you have the Thorndale Fire Station. It's not a true reflection because the grants being received is integrated in the Dorchester Fire. So what we would propose is you separate or segregate out the administration in its reporting, and therefore you'll see a true expenditures is what's happening in Dorchester and what's happening in Thorndale for fire. So that's an example. You'll see these type of examples also in transportation services and some of the public works programs and some in general government. You can go back to the slides of the structure here. And so you'll see each department head, what their portfolios are and their areas of responsibility. How would they prepare their budget for presentation when we talk about the 2026 budget? Next slide. So a little notes about these financial numbers you're about to receive. So we closed our 2024 books around the end of March. We told all department heads to get in your invoices to bring to the 2024 budget. Thereafter, we did an analysis. We looked for any nuances, if there was any double payments to vendors or any type of errors and omissions. And then as of May, we started do our analysis on our final numbers. Now, these numbers are subject to any financial general ledger adjustments that we have to make. In previous years, those adjustments were made by the auditor themselves. KPMG advised us that they won't be doing those. They'll be relying on staff to make those adjustments to our general ledger, as they wanted to maintain strict independence of the financial numbers. And so there may be further adjustments that we will be making and really impact our levy and our rate programs, but they really impact us our accounts when it talks about depreciation of our assets, how we have to incorporate that for budget audit purposes. Then we may also get some recommendations from KPMG for any adjustments. And so we would make those, and those would be reflected in our final numbers. But you would see any adjustments when you get the full audited statement in October. One note about cemeteries, when I did the trial balance on cemetery services, it was difficult to do a trial balance as you look at all your debits and your credits to make sure they match. And we couldn't do it because cemetery services was integrated right into levy programs. So what we would propose to do, and as we feel the KPMG will recommend, is that we take out and we report to you separately a cemetery budget, which has its own audit and which has its own revenue and expense streams. And that's what we report back to the Bereavement Agency of Ontario for mandatory reporting. Next slide. And so now let's go into the numbers of our protective services. You can see all the portfolios that line up for protective services. Next slide. And you'll see just on this chart and subsequent charts that you will see, you have the budget, which is columns C and D. And what we do is we add up the revenues versus the expenditures, and then we compare it to our actuals of revenue and expenditures. And that's what gives us our budget variance. So when I talk about a budget variance, you can see on this slide, there was a variance of a negative or a deficit of 133,000. So what that implies is that looking at our actuals and what our budget estimates were, we were in a deficit in our predictions. And sometimes you'll see we're in a surplus of our predictions. The blue number is the actual number that is funded by the levy after we take our actuals of our revenue with our expenses, and then we'll see the true impact on the levy. So in this case, when it comes to protective services, you'll see 3.6 million is coming directly from the levy, and you'll see our budget pressures. You'll see the OPP contract of about 90,000 and representing increased cost to police services from their contractual agreements and also their increase in operations. And you also see some increased numbers with fire departments. I was talking with the fire chief this morning, and basically in the fire services, primarily driving those costs up is their training, as the Ontario has shifted to NFPA standards and therefore, and then made those NFPA standards mandatory for all fire departments. So you see fire departments across Ontario going up to NFPA standards, and then that's putting additional costs on training. So that is protective services. You'll see overall on the next slide there, 4.3 million. So 21.7% of your budget is going to these type of protective services. Just a note on building services, we're seeing lower revenues based on what's occurring here locally with the market on some low building starts and due to market conditions.
Councillor Crockett.
I was just hoping that we could ask questions after each section instead of all at once at the end, if that works for everyone.
Sure. Go ahead.
Thanks. Just when we were looking at the restructured organizational chart, I just wanted some clarity on how police services and conservation authority align with council on this. Did their roles change? Do we get more say? Do we lose say?
Okay, through you, Mayor, to the councillor. The way I illustrated this is because the municipal staff have no ability to, we can talk and discuss about costs when it comes to these agencies. We don't really have any authority over them in any regards, but council does through their arm's length via appointments. So you can appoint people to the police services board and you can appoint members to the conservation authorities. So I illustrated it that it's really a function of council because you do the appointments to these agencies and that's where your influence is, as we don't have influence.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And then my second question was, I was just wondering in regards to the OPP deficit, was the, I'll say, minimal offset increase by the province calculated into this? Because I think that wasn't announced until like late 2024.
That is correct. So the one-time funding is confirmed for 2025. And that's where we got that. We are still waiting to see if there's any funding for 2026 and subsequent years.
Thank you. If I can just add through the mayor, if council recalls, half of the impact was budgeted for 2025. The other half is slated to be budgeted for 2026. So we're kind of leaning into it. It was a one-time grant for 1 year, but rather than hold off and let it hit the tax rates all at once, council decided to smooth it over 50% and presumably another 50%. But the updated rates have not yet come in, which I suspect will still be above and beyond even last year's rates, notwithstanding the large jump. But we are better prepared than most municipalities in that way for leading into 2026.
I think I'm good.
Councillor Lockie.
Through your worship, to Mr. D'Angelo, nice work on this presentation. Thank you very much for pulling this together. Just one question regarding the protective services and with respect to the training, and this could go out to the fire chief as well. So I know it was based on mandatory certification. So is this something that they will need to get trained in every year, or is this more of a one-time expense?
Through your mayor to the counselor, great question. We have experienced, as I talked to the director of corporate services this morning, I would say in the last decade or so, we can consider a snapshot of what we spent on training. Comparing that to our current times, we are spending more. A lot of it has to do with this certification, as you reflect. Is it a one-time expense? We're going to see a heavier increase in this year as we did last year. As we round out the mandatory 2026 date, which is just strictly for firefighting, July 1st, 2026. That's a deadline which we're on real good track to reach for the mandatory firefighter certs. We then jump into a 2028 deadline of any specialty rescue training that we need to get, and the council will have to adopt a plan of what specialty rescues we do as well. So that will, again, we will see an increase in training because of that to meet those mandatory requirements. So we are in a grouping of years right now where we're going to see an increase towards training. Once we reach those goals, we will start to level out, and it will be more of a maintenance training. We'll see our bigger numbers for recruits coming in, as they will have to attend a 6-month recruit training in order to get that certification. However, the majority of our firefighters will already have those credentials assigned to them. So right now we're seeing this increase. We will begin to level off. However, aligning with even the municipality's venture for continuous improvement, we are modulating to that belief, right? So we're our next 10 years compared to our previous 10 years will likely be an increase of training hours for staff, because as directed by the province, and in order to stay current with our own insurance of our residences, we're going to have to maintain that certain level.
Thank you for the excellent answer.
Thank you.
Councillor Heeman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question about the building permit fees. Am I correct in recalling that, like, we do a cost assessment to try and make those fees cost recovery? And if we're seeing less applications, would that necessitate a reevaluation of those fee structures?
I can defer a little bit to the municipal clerk, but my first is that I've been in discussion with the municipal clerk on charges and fees, which is a report that we'll bring to you, where we'll do further assessment on building fees. I don't know if Jana wants to elaborate on that.
So yes, under the legislation, Councillor Heeman, you are correct. In order to change fees, you have to have a study. Our study was a 4-year study, and my understanding, simply because the director of development services and planning isn't here, that she is planning on moving a new one forward. She's online. Oh, so she may be able to answer that better, but I do believe she's planning on a new one. We're close to the end of the 4-year term for the fee study.
Thank you. I guess just an additional comment. I think it's unfortunate because we do want to incentivize building with low transaction costs. And I think this is one of those unintended knock-on effects that would discourage more building if that's the way we have to go.
Deputy Mayor Smyrie.
Thank you. I think I heard you correctly. You're indicating that on a go-forward basis, the quarterly reports would really kind of be like a semi-annual report by combining Q1 and Q2 to July. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct. I looked at your past practice and from previous reports. That's how I tried to map it out. But It's at council's will of how often you'd like those financial reports.
Thank you to the mayor. I understand upon my arrival as well, the rationale for the first one coming out Q2 was the workload of that finance team in that period in terms of the timing of the auditors and tax time at water billing, et cetera. So have to take a look at getting out the Q1 for the April meeting. In terms of if feasibly we can do that, as in the past that was raised as a barrier for rationale, but we're always looking at ways for efficiency, and we talked earlier about different software and improvements. But if there's a way to do that, we can. But we want to stop short of full commitment to ensure we actually can do it.
A follow-up?
Yeah, that's great. I think I think it's more timely information for council to have if that's possible for us to get it earlier than July. But I'll leave that in staff's hands. Thank you.
Okay. Public Works. So these are the levy programs specific to Public Works when it comes to transportation services, the municipal fleet, and environmental services. Next slide. If you see here on transportation services, relatively transportation services was spot on what they were budgeting and what the actuals were. And you'll see the impact to the levy. It's your most expensive coming from the levy at 4.2 million. I just wanted to highlight the 316,000, which is as a revenue. That's your aggregate resource fee. The actual number that we received September 24, 2024 was $333,723. And based on the fluctuations of the market when it comes to gravel, I didn't want to predict what this number would be. So I kept this is not an actual, this is your budgeted number, and I kept that as a budget number. We won't find out till fall what that number will be. So I just wanted to highlight that. I anticipate it to be larger, which gives us a more favorable position. I just wanted to highlight that's not an actual, that's a budget number. So when it comes to transportation services, the pressures was on the winter maintenance of the 2024 winter season, which is harsher than predicted and increased some additional costs. But you'll see relatively a pretty good estimate of our costs when it comes to transportation services. Next slide. Previously, you would receive a report with every single fleet number, and you'll see the fuel and the maintenance. What I've done is I summarized the actual fuel maintenance costs of the entire fleet in the municipality, along with its estimated operations, and that's what you have before you. However, I'm very well aware that Public Works, Jared and his team still maintain the individual fleet costs, and they require to do that to do their analysis on prediction of replacement and life cycles of the fleet. So what I've presented to you is a summary of all the fleet operations. And you'll see that's a straight impact to the levy. A total fleet cost is around 630,000. Next slide. And then your environment services, where it comes to your waste collection, your landfill, your recycling, and your municipal drains. You could see the revenue is primarily from your garbage tags, and you have significant revenue in your landfill and recycling, and that helped offset your environmental services expenses. Have a final impact. You're almost at revenue neutral of 125,000. Just a note on landfill, One of the things that I was considering from a financial only risk assessment is to go to a cashless system. And so one area we could start with is landfill, where landfill no longer accepts cash. That's albeit a financial risk management. That is not a customer service assessment. And so from a financial perspective, we would like to see the entire municipality cashless. So we're still debating it with Public Works on how to start a cashless system. But I realize in this community, people still like to pay for cash. And so that is a thing that we're still debating on how to move forward. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And that is on the environment services. You'll see overall, it's one of your bigger expenses at 38.5% of the levy budget. Again, increased winter maintenance costs. The aggregate resource fee is a placeholder. The fleet is an effective operation. And we had some decreased costs in our landfill operations. And overall, you're at about a $66,000 surplus compared to what you estimated in your budget. I'll pause there for any questions on Public Works.
Any questions from Councillor? Councillor Crockett, have you got your hand up there?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment that I don't think the community at this time is ready to go cashless, so maybe we could defer that for a little bit longer, but I appreciate where the incentive is coming from.
Thank you. If there's nothing else. Oh, Tom, go ahead.
Well, on that note as well, if you go cashless, like you still have transaction fees. So there's, you have admin to deal with, but you also have transaction fees. So I think that debate still rages in the private sector.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to community services. As you can see, we have it into recreational services, parks and trails, and library services. So it's quite evident on the increase of revenue. People are more comfortable post-COVID. People are coming out of their homes and they're using your recreational facilities, and that's evident in your increased revenues. When you look at community services and you look at overall with a 2.1 in revenues from user fees, and you look at an expenses of 4.2, you're at about 50% revenue capture. That to me is a very favorable for a municipality, that you're doing pretty darn good in only having to draw from the levy 50%. So the user fees are working. You're getting great capture, and it's good from the programming being done by Steve and his team, and people are willing to go to those, pay those fees, and that's helps offsetting the demand on the levy. So overall, community services is about 4.3 million, or 21% of your budget. And you would see greater revenue is being generated at the Flight Exec Center, the Thorndale Community Center, Dorchester Playground, and the soccer pitches. You're seeing lower revenue than predicted at the Dorchester Pool and Splash Park, and the Thorndale Playground. And pause there for any questions.
Councillor Crockett?
Hi, Mayor. Sorry, just for clarification, do we get revenue from the splash pads?
I'll defer to the director.
Through the mayor to council. So that line actually also includes the Dorchester Pool. So that's all it's all pool related revenue, lessons, aquafit, public swims, private rentals.
Gotcha. Okay. Thought I was missing something there.
Go ahead.
Okay, to general government. Here's a prime example of why we're looking to reformat our reporting back to council. As you can see, the revenues, when it comes to the tax revenues and our other revenues that we get from bank interest, it kind of hides away from our expenses of what's happening in the office of the CAO, council operations, and that of the corporate services team. But overall, these are your financial numbers at year end. You can see the 12.3 million is basically your taxes, your levy, but it also includes interest and penalties on taxes that are in arrears. And you'll see the line of 2.4 million, that's basically your bank interest and your provincial grant. Now, a note on bank interest, 2024 was pretty good in terms of earning interest on your the funds you have in the bank. However, we've seen a rapid decline in those interest rates, and you won't see, it's not anticipated you're going to see that type of interest earnings in 2025. And I'll pause there.
Councillor Lockie.
Yeah, through your worship. So the favorability in treasury, like you'd mentioned, it's a lot of it's because of interest. Is it 100% of interest because of interest, or did we have better balances that we were collecting on as well?
If I may, through mayor to the councillor, it'd be a combination of both. We had 28 million at hand. Right now, we're about 24 million, so we had a greater principal to invest in. And also we had, our interest is based on a monthly rate. We were starting at the start of January 2024, was about 5.35%, but then it rapidly declined by December 2024. We're hovering around the 3% mark. And so that is impacting it. Currently, we are earning about 65 to 70,000 per month in terms of interest earnings. And that is in line of what you budgeted for 2025. You're very close. It's right on the edge there. I don't foresee a surplus like we saw in 2024 in 2025. Okay, and then some brief notes on the remaining is your planning and development services, similar format of what you were seeing with building services. There's due to permit fees and revenue generated from permit fees is in decline due to market conditions. And so you'll see the impact on levy of about 53,000. And then in cemetery services, as I referenced, we are looking to separating that for future years. And you'll see that it operated about 18,000 against the trust fund, not the levy.
Councillor Heeman.
Just through you, your worship, just out of curiosity, maybe you don't have the number at your fingertips, but I'm just wondering, what would that decline in planning and building services be from, say, its peak in roughly like 2022? You know, because we've seen declines year over year. I'm just wondering, like how far we've come down.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, to the councillor, I would submit that it's been significant decline. I'd have to go back. I would suggest you would go 2 years before COVID to get where you are at your peak, then what was transitioning during COVID, and then the recovery, but we haven't really seen a recovery. So if you're looking for a financial analysis, that would kind of be where I would look at first.
Mr. Barrett.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Amanda might be on the line virtually as well, if she recalls. My recollection of having this conversation is the COVID period, post-COVID right after, was about between 2.5 million revenues. And today we're about 1. 900,000 to 1 million. So it's less than half today of what it was. 2025, we started to address, once again, like every other area, the actuals for budgetary purposes, because the budget was still pegged quite high, and we knew if we weren't going to bring that level of revenue in, it's going to hit us somewhere else. So we've made those internal accommodations to reflect the lower revenue in this area, and making sure we're meeting within the expenses there as well.
Through you, your worship, can you hear me online?
Yes, I can.
Great.
Go ahead.
Good evening. Yes, that's correct. We did come closer to the actuals that would be predicted from each year and versus the peak and now. I would say we were impacted quite a bit by legal fees and less applications in some areas, but we are closer to the actuals, as David said. So thanks, David.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Smybert.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, so that was really the intent of building in, like every municipality has to build in that reserve, right? So that when there is like a dip in terms of those revenues, then that's the purpose, is to draw from that reserve to help kind of smooth that out. So I am assuming that probably on a like for 2026, we'll likely be looking at accessing that fund, I guess, to kind of cover off some of those decrease in our revenue. But then maybe there should be less costs as well, I would think. Yeah.
Okay, proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So here we are, an overall illustration of where we're at with our department levy, our department's levy programs, and its impact on the levies, where we're drawing from, and the expenses of each of the departments. So our unaudited position for all levy departments is when we take all our revenues, subtracting our expenses, we came to 1.35 million, again, primarily from that bank interest rate earning. When it comes to funding that we receive from the province, the OCIF, we are required to segregate out the interest rates and include that back into the deferred revenue. The province has given us notice that they would like to see greater expenditures as we're accumulating our OCIF. In discussion with the Director of Public Works, he does have a plan to utilize those funds. And we see from the federal, the former gas tax revenue, now called the Canada Community Building Fund of 69,000. Again, we extracted out the interest rates on those funds, and we put it in, we're recommending that you put it back into the CCBF deferred revenue. When it comes to the council election, we currently have 50,000 in reserves. We anticipate another 10,000 you'll require to conduct a successful municipal election next year. Janet can talk to a little bit more why she needs an additional $10,000. And we would propose paying back the tax stabilization. If you recall, for Eva Ida Park acquisition, you did borrow, self-borrow from the tax stabilization. This gives us an opportunity to replenish those funds back sooner rather than later. And you're also going to be receiving a report from the Director of Community Services about some provincial funding. This is part of a package that we would see to help fund that funding. And so those are our recommendations. It is the will of council whether they support these recommendations or not.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Or have we asked them all? Looks like we've asked them all.
Okay.
Okay, so.
If I may, Mayor,
Certainly.
yeah, there's still more. There's the rate. There's still quite a bit more, but I'm going to speed it up. So you have your rate programs on your water services. your wastewater services and stormwater services. Happy to report that they're all in surplus position. So kudos to the Department of Public Works in keeping those within budget. We'll see though a substantial surplus in your wastewater services. If you can go to that, there's how the impact are on your rates. So when you come to your unaudited position, when it comes to your rate programs, you'll see that about 626,000 in surplus position, and we recommend respectively to put the funds back into those reserves. And then finally, two more things, the capital budget. When you look at the capital budget, if you look at all the projects that have been budgeted in 2023 and prior years, plus through 2024 capital budget, you're about 23.8 million in budgeted capital. You had a actual expenditure of 12.7 million, and that is derived, if you see on the bottom line, 6.1 that came from your capital reserves and 6.6 came from other sources. For example, your OCIF, your CCBF, and your deferred revenue and your development charges. That equates to the 12.7. We're recommending carrying over 6.6 million to complete those projects in 2025, which left a surplus of 4.4 million that would revert back into those revenue source accounts. And then finally, once you look at your capital, you can look at your reserves. This is in draft form, but I wanted to give you a picture of what it looks like. It's subject to further adjustments, but we're pretty confident with these draft numbers. You'll see the impacts of the capital projects when it comes to your operating reserves and your capital reserves. And that, Mayor, would conclude the presentation.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. Any other questions then before? Okay, Councillor Lockie.
Through your worship, I would like to circle back on wastewater. So it is known that our wastewater rates are very high, and this is difficult for a lot of households. So this year we have $548,000 surplus, and this could be a good opportunity to relieve some of that burden in terms of a rebate. Now, so shocker alert, I did a spreadsheet. So, you can make some assumptions on some things, like based on the rates that we think we'll get. And now we have the asset management plan. So we know what our capital outlaws are going to be to, replenish age assets. So based on what I've taken a look at preliminary, it looks like we are in a very healthy position to potentially consider a credit. What I don't have is the details on the surplus of this year and the particulars of 2024. So what I would like to recommend is to consider, I know there's a motion to move that full amount to the reserve, but I'd like to spend some more time looking at the information and perhaps make a recommendation to perhaps give a credit. Now, I recognize that council would not feel likely comfortable giving a credit without having the information in front of them. So my recommendation then would be to defer the decision about allocating the wastewater to the reserve until the next meeting, to give staff and myself enough time to prepare a better analysis to give council a comfort level to potentially consider giving a credit back to the wastewater users.
Thank you, Councillor Lockie. Any conversation concerning this? Deputy Mayor Smybury.
I just want to make sure that staff has enough time to be able to deal with this, and so I'm thinking that you're looking for a staff report that will come to council with respect to your request, and I just want to make sure that staff has enough time to do that. Can we just ask staff to see if that gives them enough time to prepare a report like that?
Sure. Yeah, through to the deputy mayor, through your worship. I have prepared a report already and I have given it to staff already. They just need some time to review my report. And so hopefully they may have it for the next meeting, but recognize that they may need more time.
Councillor,
Sorry, through the mayor on this point, we think because the next meeting is end of July, that should be achievable. If it's not, appreciate the leeway. I also wanted to highlight the agenda online references the recommendation that the 3 items from the rate supported funds be moved into operating reserve. But the recommendation in the slide deck and that is being proposed is that it be moved into the capital reserves. So just as council is making the consideration that it's actually the capital reserves. And then of course with Councillor Lockie recommending deferral of the wastewater services item.
That's correct, just B. Just wastewater.
Councillor Crockett, excuse me.
Sorry, just to go back to conversation around a possible credit. I would appreciate as part of the staff analysis is to understand what the cost of the project and staff time would be in regards to rebate out would be. I just don't want them to like just because each other. Perhaps another solution instead of a credit, if that isn't feasible, could be a future consideration of either maintaining or reducing fees for next year since we're going into the budget cycle. I don't know. We can continue this conversation, I guess, once the analysis takes place.
Councillor Lockie.
Because these are the rates that were paid for by these wastewater users, I think it would be only fair to give it back to those wastewater users that paid into it. That is my recommendation.
Yeah.
So yes, so I would like to make, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor.
Go ahead.
Through you, your worship, I think we've got multiple sources of feedback in terms of our comparative water rates in the province, and then also our feedback from residents. I think like every year we get that graph that shows how we're doing locally, and I think it has been a bone of contention. And I think we're fresh off a asset management plan that said that we're within our ability to pay for our future needs of existing assets with moderate increases. And I think that that's also been reflected by the Watson report. And I think the point of this is to collect what is necessary for the sustainable operation of the service. And if we have reserves in place that allow us to do that and to not be buffered by surprises, like a burst water main, and to be able to respond to emergencies, and for our healthy investment in expansion and maintenance of the infrastructure. I think we owe it to our residents to look at making sure that the rates are fair.
Sorry, your worship, my understanding is Councillor Lockie has made a motion to defer wastewater allocation surplus to the capital reserve pending a staff report at a future meeting. Am I pretty close?
You have worded it correctly.
Okay, so it's on the floor and that needs to be dealt with.
So a seconder for that motion. Is that you, Tom? Okay, then. All in favor? Yes, we can. Oh, okay. moving to some discussion on this matter.
Yeah, I just wanted to just comment, I think on what Councillor Heyman was saying in terms of there being enough I guess funds available to make sure that we've got a fair wastewater system. We also have some pretty big expenses coming up in terms of development and infrastructure, and wastewater is part of that. So I think by putting that into the capital reserves, that is only going to help us moving forward when we're looking at investing in that infrastructure for development.
Councillor Lockie.
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, so are you suggesting that the current wastewater users should fund development?
That's what municipalities
That's-
do in terms of if there's a development proposal, right? And it requires infrastructure to be extended to that particular development. That's on the municipality to provide. We would get DC credits from the developer to offset that. But initially, we normally have to fund the cost unless it's cost shared by.
Right, but the funds should not be funded by the current wastewater users. It should be funded through development charges, and if funds aren't there, it should come from a debenture. They should be kept completely separate, in my opinion.
You wish to make a comment?
Through you, Mayor, to council on your deliberations. So just from a financial perspective only, is that costs related to water treatment plants and wastewater treatment plants are escalating due to construction costs, labor costs, and the technology involved. For technical parameters, I refer to the Director of Public Works. But municipalities are looking to increase their reserves to pay for these costs down the road, because these treatment plants are quite expensive, not only in the environmental assessment stage, but also in the design stage, then followed by the construction stages of these projects. The technical aspects, Jared can talk to you about that. Having said that, I have yet to see, well, I've seen them, I've received them. Thank you, Councillor Lockie. I've yet to digest those spreadsheets and then what its impact would be to our Watson report on water rates and our 2025 asset management plan. Would look to, could we bring it back in July? I think we could. We have all the information there. We would do an assessment. I'd confer with the CAO and the Director of Public Works to look at where we are at. And I would propose possibly 3 options. One is do nothing. One is to transfer it all, or some type of hybrid option, and give council options of what to do with these reserves.
Okay, Tom?
I think this is a healthy discussion, and I think it's a very difficult topic in terms of how we plan for our infrastructure, and there's a lot of uncertainty in that. And I think it's good that we're having this discussion and that we're can potentially look at both sides of the column, right? Because we know these fees have gone up and up and up. And we also know that we have been told that our reserves are replenishing at the necessary rate. So I think when people get the bills and they see them go up everywhere else, and they're looking at ways that they can make economies in their own personal life, I think it's appropriate that we at least go through the exercise of proving that what we are collecting is absolutely essential.
Anyone else? Councillor Crockett?
I think just to conclude the conversation, I agree that I think this is something that we can consider, but I would appreciate the multiple options from staff when this report is brought forward for us to consider. So I appreciate that offer.
All right, so we currently have a motion on the floor. Would you like to read that again, please?
Certainly. It's been moved by Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Heeman. The motion is to defer wastewater allocation surplus to capital reserve pending a staff report to a future meeting, or at a future meeting, sorry.
All right, so we have a mover and a seconder. So I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you. And the, yes, would you please in this particular case?
So at the next motion would be the one on the agenda minus, so it would be to receive the report, the approve the recommended allocation of the operating surplus, the 1.35 million operating surplus as listed, and that council approved the recommended allocation of the rate program surplus to with 56,018 to water services capital reserve and 22,002 to the stormwater management capital reserve.
Okay. Are you moving it, Council?
Just have one question before we proceed.
Certainly.
And I don't want to steal Councilor Lockie's thunder on this because I know she's always adamant about the interest rates, and I know we talked about the restructuring of how interest is calculated within the Treasury and Administrative Services. So I was just wondering whether those are being accounted for in terms of how these surpluses are being calculated moving forward.
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor. So in 2024, we did not segregate out the interest rates to account for our water and wastewater reserves. However, in 2025, we are. So we are capturing and tracking the interest rates. And what you'll see in your 2025 year end, you'll see our calculations on interest rates related to these reserves. And most likely a recommendation from staff that these interest rates go back into those reserves.
Thank you. And I
Okay.
would like to second that.
All right.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Seconded. All in favor? All in favor, okay. Yes, that carries. All right, now we could go on to 2.2.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, through you, Mayor, to council. So just to be very brief here, this is our proposed 2026 budget development and schedule. I won't go over the chart, but that was the chart that you saw. What we propose to do is budgets by departments based on portfolios of responsibility. And then for our meeting schedule, where we get direction from council this evening to proceed with the 2026 budget development. If you had a percentage in mind, or if you're relying on staff of where we're at, then we would ask each of the portfolios, the divisional managers, to submit their budget numbers to the directors by July 25th. The directors would then forward their submissions of department budgets to myself by August 8th. Then we would then prepare and assemble, consolidate all the budget submissions and prepare our first draft, which would then be reviewed by senior management team based on looking at what our first draft budget results are based on council's direction. Then we would, with the aid of Michael in communications, we would do a public engagement. And then we would start preparing our budget workshop material. We propose coming back in December with a workshop on operating, where the department heads would present their operating budgets. The next day, December 2nd, talk about our capital and our reserves. And then for budget deliberations on December 8th and December 10th. And should the mayor require, we would accommodate any additional budget meetings.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Lucky, go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship, I'm good with the schedule. I just have a question regarding what is entailed by public engagement.
In terms of public engagement, what you've done in the past, I've seen, is your surveying, utilizing some facilitation to get the survey from budgets. But basically, that would be the scenario, presentation of the budgets online, seeking feedback, and then any suggestions from Michael on terms of what works in this community when it comes to public engagement. I'm not well versed on what works here, and so I would rely on Michael and the CAO of how to do that public engagement.
That satisfies your question? Yep. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if there is none, that a mover and a seconder, that make sure I got the right port, this one, because it's such a huge agenda. That report number CSF-007-25 be received for information, and that the 2026 operating and capital budget be developed with associated tax levy and service rate options for council to consider, and that the 2026 budget timelines be tentatively scheduled as outlined in this report in order to achieve approval prior to the beginning of the 2026 fiscal period. Sorry. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smyber, a seconder. Councillor Lockie, all in favor? Great, that carries. Thank you. So a call upon Director McDonald to give Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund report.
Good afternoon, through your worship. You have before you report CS 003-25 regarding the fantastic news of Thames Centre receiving a $1 million provincial grant via the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund. The purpose of this report is to confirm the municipality's commitment to proceed with this project, and in doing so, to cover the balance of this project's costs. The province has requested and is awaiting this confirmation. As you may recall, at the October 21st meeting of council last year, council supported applying for this funding. The scope of this project is a replacement of our north ice pad, otherwise known as the Canusa rink. That would entail removing the existing concrete slab and the chilling system below it, along with the boards, glass, and benches. The need for this replacement has been identified in our asset management plan, our department master plan, and by our refrigeration system contractor. The ideal schedule would see this project go out for proposals on a timeline, ensuring the bids would be back in time to be considered during the 2026 budget process. The project could then be awarded to the preferred bidder in January 2026, following the budget being finalized. The contractor could then work towards all engineering and planning, ordering of materials, and scheduling of construction crew to literally break ground as soon as the ice comes out in the North Pad, which would be normally at the end of March. So that'd be the end of March 2026, with the hopes that the work can be completed in time for the next ice season to begin, which is in early September. That provides 5 months for construction. The initial estimates we required and received during the grant application process provided an estimated total cost of $2,015,000. When you factor in the non-rebatable portion of HST and the grant, we are left with a remaining cost of $1.15 million to cover. Page 3 of the report shows how we can cover this cost by a combination of sources, which would be finalized during the 2026 budget deliberations. And I'm happy to answer any questions council may have at this time.
Thank you, Director McDonald. Any questions? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Mayor. No question. I just want to comment and say thank you for the efforts that went into this. I think that this is a significant contribution to this project that we know has to take place imminently. So looking forward to seeing it complete by, what would that be, September 2026-27 hockey season in Ringette.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Heeman.
I would just like to echo Councillor Crockett's comments and thanks. I think thank you, Steve, for bringing this forward. And I think it was probably a good thing we waited a year and got that grant. Like that's I think a good example of having a shovel-ready project, and good job all around.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? No? Seeing none? Okay, then before you, you have a motion that report number CS 003-25 be received for information and that council approve proceeding with the projected project, which is being funded at a $1 million community sport and recreation infrastructure fund. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybird and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That carries. Thank you, Steve. So we'll move to item number 12.4. Is Amanda online to present this? Okie dokie. Amanda, if you can hear us, you go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Millen, through you, your worship, and members of council. The purpose of this report is to seek council's direction and authorization to initiate the process for the disposition of municipally owned lands in accordance with policy CP-A-7.2, which is the sale or other disposition of surplus lands and closing of highways and road allowances. The municipality owns, manages, and operates 5 aggregate operations with a total of 116.65 acres in Thames Centre, which is captured on the attached gravel pits map. On occasion, staff receive inquiries regarding the gravel lands from other private gravel operators within the municipality. Recently, staff were approached regarding gravel pit number 5, being 3002 Cromarty Drive, by a neighboring property owner, which is also a operating pit. However, as referenced above, council determines any lands to declare land surplus. 3002 Cromarty Drive is an active gravel pit with an approximate site area of 15 acres. The property is zoned extractive industrial M3 zone with an official plan designation as extractive industrial and has a permitted annual tonnage of 20,000. Declaring a municipally owned active gravel pit as surplus for sale, particularly when larger and more efficient municipal pits remain in operation, offers several strategic benefits. This approach enables the municipality to optimize its asset portfolio, reduce operational and oversight costs, and generate revenue that can be reinvested into priority initiatives, such as capital projects. Additionally, the sale of surplus land may create opportunities for private sector investment and local economic development, aligning with long-term planning and responsible asset management practices. Declaring the lands as surplus would allow for the municipality to generate revenue from the sale of the land, where funds could be directed towards reserves, priority infrastructure, or debt reduction. Should the lands be sold, the municipality will carefully consider how the land might be best used in future and ensure that any sale agreement allows for the use while ensuring that the sale is compliant with all applicable environmental regulations and that the purchaser will be responsible for any future environmental remediation and or use of said lands. As an alternative, the lands can remain in the municipality's asset portfolio, which may or may not increase in value pending market conditions. The sale of the land would result in a financial benefit to the municipality, with net proceeds recommended to be allocated to capital reserve to support future capital infrastructure projects. Any associated costs related to this transaction, including legal, surveying, and related expenses, will be the sole responsibility of the purchaser. Therefore, staff recommend that report number PDS-036-25 be received for information, and that these lands be declared surplus to the needs of the municipality, and that the proposal and sale of said lands be subject to bylaw number 65-2022, being a bylaw to govern the sale of surplus lands, and that an appraisal be undertaken by a qualified professional to determine the fair market value of the lands, and that council authorize staff to negotiate a conditional agreement of purchase and sale to be brought back to council for its consideration, and that applicable costs related to survey and legal work, as well as the sale price of the lands being subject to HST, be at the expense of the purchaser and due at closing, and that the net proceeds of the sale of the subject lands be brought forward for consideration during the 2026 budget review process. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Story. Any questions from council on this matter? Comments? Deputy Mayor Smyber?
Thank you. I'm not sure who can answer the question. It has more to do with notice, I guess, once we declare properties surplus. So if and when council decides to do that, what is the notice period and how do we provide notice of that?
Through your worship, 14 days notice is required. And Jana, you were going to speak a little bit further. So if you have anything else to add.
Yes. So as per the notice bylaw, we did review it. I reviewed this along with the CIO. The notice provision is given once a negotiated contract. That's the way our bylaw is written. Once you have a note that you're going to be moving forward with selling it, and there's 14 days notice provided. It needs to be provided on our website as well as in the paper, as per our notice bylaw. Other than that, we have met every other aspect of the notice bylaw.
Anything else, council? Councillor Human? Yes?
I think it'd be an interesting prospect if we were able to use an old gravel pit to fund some gravel conversion. Especially in that area.
Okay. All right, if there are no other questions or comments from council, then we have a motion before us that has been stated in the report and attached to your agenda. So a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Crockett, seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That carries. Thanks. All right, we'll call on Director of Community Services and Facilities, Mr. McDonald, to present a report on the VON agreement extension.
Through you, your worship. You have before you report CS 002-25 regarding facility lease agreement extension with the Victorian Order of Nurses for Canada. Attached to this report, you will find the proposed 5-year extension, which VON has already agreed to for the space they occupy at the Flight Exec Center. The main changes to this extension compared to the current agreement are that the new one is a 5-year term, and along with that, it's got 3 additional 1-year term extensions that are available if both sides agree, 1 year at a time. A phased-in rate increase, which is shown in the financial implications section of the report. Over the course of the 5 years, this will bring them from paying roughly 2% of current fair market value up to 10%, which is still substantial savings for this valued community partner. This equates to their annual rent going from a current amount of under $20,000 a year to $94,000 a year in year 5. So just under 5 times the rate they currently pay after 5 years. This will put us, the municipality, in a much better position to cover all of our operating and insurance costs for this space. As well, this new extension clarifies some items that are the responsibility and cost of VON and not Thames Center, which was previously missing from the contract. And that sums it up. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director McDonald. Anyone questions with this or comments? Okay, seeing none. Thank you. So at this time, a mover and a seconder that report number CS-0025 be received for information, and that council approve extending the partnership with Victorian Order of Nurses for Canada, Ontario Branch VON, as per the attached facility lease agreement, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the facility lease agreement substantially in the form of the attached agreement as included in the bylaw portion of the agenda. moved by Deputy Mayor Smyber and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thanks, Steve. All right, moving on to item number 12.6, amended guideline for additional residential units, and our planner Lindsay Nurin to present.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. I'm presenting report PDS-035-025 for your information, which introduces the amended Thames Center Guide to Additional Residential Units. I feel like we're always meeting like this. It's lovely. This updated guide responds to growing interest in additional residential units, particularly in our rural areas, and aims to provide clearer, accessible information to residents navigating ARU development, both within and outside of our service settlement areas. While we currently only permit ARUs in fully serviced urban areas under our in force and effect official plan and zoning bylaw, we have seen an increase in inquiries from the public in rural and agricultural areas. As you know, our proposed official plan amendment and the county's corresponding amendment to expand permissions are still under appeal. This guide is just going to help fill in that gap for residents who may not know what the permissions are or what the municipality essentially looks for in different proposals. The revised guideline emphasizes clustering the ARUs near the main residence to preserve farmland and minimize servicing impacts, as well as shared servicing, however not required but encouraged, subject to professional review that those existing services can accommodate an additional residential unit, and if they can't, how the proponent would accommodate that with a new septic system. Maintaining a subordinate size and scale to respect the rural character, ensuring compatibility with agricultural operations and the surrounding landscape. This guide, at the end of the day, is non-binding, but it provides practical direction for applicants and ensures transparency in our approach to analysis while we await more policy certainty. Ultimately, our goal is to bring forward a zoning bylaw amendment aligned with final county and local official plan direction once the appeals are resolved. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nurin. Any questions from Councillor Crockett?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lindsay. I just want to extend my appreciation for you taking the comments that Council shared with you at the last presentation of these guidelines. I have one question and two comments, but I'm going to start with my comments first, if that's okay. I appreciate the language that's used in this report. I think the guidelines are clear and concise while still allowing for a little bit of flexibility if and when needed. As we know, there's always going to be kind of one-off requests that may not always meet the PPS and guidelines specifically, but I think those can be looked at on a one-off occasion and kind of worked through the system. Second to that is with the new PPS, the updated guidelines, in the anticipation of our OP being passed sometime, I just wanted to comment that I hope that we get to a point where straightforward applications could almost bypass council and proceed directly to permit, because there is such a need for diversification in housing. And I think that this is a really good step in order to accomplish that. Which leaves my one question, which I'm not even sure you can share a whole lot about, was whether or not we have an update or timeline regarding our OP appeal potential approval.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Crockett. What a perfect question. Thank you for asking that. I will defer to our Director of Planning and Development Services, Amanda Story, who may have more information on that.
Through you, your worship, and members of council, thanks, Lindsay. Can you hear me well over there?
Absolutely, yes.
Good. Okay, thanks. So I have been doing my best to advocate for Thames Center and our official plan and the appeal that it's under right now. Although the appeal, one of the appeals is broad, we are trying our best to work with legal on hopefully getting an a settlement, dismissal, or resolution of some sort through the OLT in writing from our legal rep, but doing our best to advocate to move zoning bylaw amendments and policy changes forward for the proposed OP. And as you said, we are in the need of diversification of housing. So ARUs have been a wormhole of a topic for our staff, and we're doing our best to move forward to make those policies change to better assist in the assessment of those applications. So it may not answer, that may not answer exactly the timeline piece of everything, but August was a proposal from our legal rep, but I will follow up when I do know more.
If I may, through the mayor, and thanks Amanda as well, for Councillor Crockett, to be clear, there is no date set for a hearing. So for a timeline perspective, there's no date set. Staff are equally frustrated from that process. We are seeking written agreements in the absence of hearing dates. And so we'll see how far we can get with those in writing, and we'll continue to keep council informed as those items progress.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else with a question or comment? No? Okay, then, at this point then, mover and seconder to receive the report for information. Councillor Crockett and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Item number 13, reports of committees. Items listed under reports of committees are approved by council in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. So a mover and a seconder that the reports of committees agenda item 13.1 and 13.2 be approved as presented. Any questions, comments, or are you moving?
I would actually just like to make a comment regarding the Special Events Committee
Certainly.
report, if
Go ahead.
I may. I just wanted to take this opportunity to announce a new event that the Special Events Committee has proposed. This will be a two-part monster walk event taking place in both Dorchester and Thorndale on the proposed date of October 25th. Essentially, if you're not familiar with what a monster walk is, it's just a community-wide event where local businesses essentially hand out candy, or a trick-or-treat event for children in our community, mostly geared to younger children who wouldn't go out on actual Halloween for trick-or-treating. So we're excited to get the ECDEV's support on this, on getting local businesses to participate. And this will be a hybrid event, so it's even accommodating to any businesses that do not have a brick and mortar or are located outside of kind of the main streets of both urban centers. And then further to that, we have some exciting new advancements at Festival of Lights that everyone will have to stay tuned to see. And I will end with inviting everyone to our Canada Day festivities, which begin on June 30th with the fireworks and barbecue, and then proceedings on July 1st. So looking forward to seeing everyone there next week, because it's already July, apparently.
Thank you for the pitch. Okay, so are you moving, or you have a question?
I just had a question with respect to 13.2. And that was the request for proposals for the Thorndale Lions Community Center from the ad hoc committee. So is that being done in order to determine what the costs would be going forward, so that when we are looking for grant amounts, we know what we're looking for?
I'm going to defer that to Councillor Heeman as the chair. Or is there some?
Maybe we can tag team it. Like, I think my, the request for proposal is the criterion in which to evaluate proposals for a engineer or a drafts person to do the design work.
Yes, so the RFP they're proposing is for a designed so we could be shovel ready, we need the design. That was what council approved the budget for. So the RFP, they've set out the scope for the RFP to design for design companies. Yes.
Anything else? Okay, a mover and a seconder for the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Don't believe that there is any unfinished business under item number 14. So we'll move to notice of motion. Councillor Lockie, would you like to speak to this one?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. So with this council, planning and forward thinking has been up front. We've got the strat plan, we've had the asset management plan, recreation master plan, water, wastewater studies. And so what we need to do, in my opinion, to close the gap is to have one consolidated document that outlines specifically the growth needs of this community so that we have a complete view of what is needed to comfortably accommodate increased population growth. So I have consulted with staff and they have confirmed that they have the capacity to do the work in-house. So that is why I am making the motion as written in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Lockie. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Smybert?
Great, thanks. Just for clarification, so is it what you're looking for is kind of a long-term financial plan that would help identify what the operational capital costs are moving forward on the multiple studies that we have done over the past few years?
That's right, and have it consolidated in one document so it's very clear.
Councillor Heeman, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I think this is a good idea because we have a lot of these different plans and master plans, and some of them talk to each other and some of them don't. And I think that it is largely the responsibility of council and staff to work to implement those into the budgets. But if we could have a further guide to instruct those budgets, then I think that would get us closer to, say, multi-year budgets like we have talked about in the past, or at least having a comprehensive understanding of the financial implications on a multi-year basis.
So were you looking to second that motion then, Tom?
Sure.
Okay. So we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Okay, none opposed, so that is carried. And Councillor Lockie, you've been busy. So 15.2, a request from Middlesex County Council to designate community safety zones in school areas. Go right ahead.
Sure. So we had the road safety open house. We had excellent turnout and feedback from the rural community, but not a lot from in town. So, which is why I took the initiative to put this motion in place. Get a lot of feedback just from the general community and even through social media that children's safety is important. Recognize that distracted driving has become more prevalent. And we can't underestimate the importance of the safety for the children, which is why I put this motion forward.
Thank you. Any discussion? I guess I should have asked remover first.
Okay. I am in support of this motion because not only for the inherent benefits, but also the benefits that this would give us under current provincial legislation to monitor and enforce speed through photo radar systems once we have identified community safety zones. I know this doesn't address that at this time, but I think that this is the first step in something that again gives us not only additional consequences for dangerous driving and improved safety for school-age children and residents, but also gives us a path to an additional enforcement tool. I'll add one thing if I could make a friendly amendment that whereas West Nigeria Public School is on a Thames Center regulated road, that we take the steps to implement community safety zone as we can in our own jurisdiction.
So Councillor Lockie, are you good with that friendly amendment?
Yes, I support the amendment.
Okay, okay. All right. So, a mover, and we have a mover and a seconder for a friend. Yeah, okay. Councillor Heeman? Certainly, ask.
Mayor, if I may, I just had I guess, an internal inquiry in my mind when reading this motion, considering that it would go to county for consideration. And I was wondering if discussion were to take place, whether this would be an opportunity to have Thames Center put forward support to, I guess, look at like an inclusive community safety zone understanding for the entire county of Middlesex in school zones. I'm not sure I don't know. I'm not sure of what the parameters would be around that. But I think it would be a good consideration instead of having ad hoc proposals come forward to them. So if it's just part of the discussion.
I was at a convention recently with the county engineer and tried to get him to join me at an automated speed enforcement session. He was going to another one though, but he said it would have to take, yes, a coordinated approach probably to get. So, and I just also wanted you guys to be aware, we do have to bring back a bylaw to do it in front of West Missouri, just so you're aware.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering if with that information, if discussion takes place around this at an upcoming county council meeting, whether you could propose kind of looking at a coalition to kind of bring this proposal forward across the county.
Yes, we can do that. I'm speaking for the deputy mayor as well. The royal we. Okay, so, Councillor Heeman, you have further?
I'm just further to that. I'm wondering whether it'd be appropriate to make the request on the this. It's not speed radar. It's photo.
Automated speed reduction ASRs, yeah.
Yeah, whether
Radar.
we can make a request to look for a consortium or administrative partners to pursue that, whether that makes sense at this time or wait for at least some traction on the first stage. I don't know, just a discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. For me, that's a substantive enough difference from this that it might be more clear if it was a separate item than what's being requested in Councillor Lockie's motion from a staff at even to administer.
Yeah, and just a side note, in discussions, I would say I would deal with this first and then it would take in the seminar. I mean, I can, if you want us to do a report or something, we possibly could, but in everything I've been in, because I know it's important to council, it takes county, we have to enter into agreements and stuff with county. It's a very complicated process to get there. So let's see, my suggestion would be to buy in with this first.
Thank you. Well, I definitely think this signals our intention. So.
So where are we? Are we voting?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, that carries then, thank you. And I don't have.
So what was added to the council agenda is that council proceed into closed session under section 239 2B of the Municipal Act to deal with two personal matters about identifiable individuals at, it is 7:38. Oh, I'm tired. 7:38 p.m. mover and seconder first.
Yes. So are you
I
are you
would
the mover?
make that motion, but and in addition to a 10-minute recess or 5-minute recess.
Yeah.
5 minutes, certainly. That I would
need seconder?
think everyone would agree with that. A seconder for the motion.
See,
Yeah,
see.
okay.
Okay.
Councillor Crockett, all in favor?
Okay.
That carries, then thank you. So we will adjourn,